1956 Chevy 210 4-door, 327 with a 3-speed. You'll never guess why I call her Dirty Gurdy. Hi, welcome to my very first video in this revival series for my 1956 Chevy, otherwise known as Dirty Gurdy. My goal with this car and every single one of my project cars is to try to make it a daily driver. So this is the beginning of that process. But I don't know how far I'm going to go with the restoration of Dirty Gurdy. Is it going to be a full restoration? I don't know at this point. I may just leave her in this current rat rod / hot rod state. I really don't know, but I'm definitely not going to put anything newer than 1965 on this car, because that's pretty much where it's at right now. You know, except for the carburetor, because that doesn't count. But no electronic ignition, nothing like that at all mechanical. So how did I get this car? So this story does not begin on Craigslist with me. This car basically fell into my lap. I had too many cars at this point in my life, and I was not even looking for more cars. But a friend of work approached me, and she knew about all the vehicles that I have, and especially I have a 57 Chevy, and she knew about it. She would ask me advice about it, and it was a project car that her and her husband were going to work on. And a few years go by, and they're getting ready to retire and move out of town, and she basically approached me one day in the break room and said, "Hey, do you want to buy my car?" And I'm like, no more cars, too many cars. And then I thought about it and talked to her again. I'm like, well, how much? And the price that she gave me was incredible. It was an incredible price. So I had to go look at the car. So the only thing I knew about it was a project car that they really hadn't got running yet. So here it is. So this is the car. It's actually pretty straight. There is some body damage in some places. There is some rust in some places. The car is not running, but it's actually not in terrible shape, and it is mostly there. So once again, I see no reason why I shouldn't get this car. Even if I just wanted to flip it after I got it running, I would do well, I would think. So I instantly said I would take the car. So a few days go by, and I come back and I take her home. Day one. So the car kind of wants to run. Prime it with gas, and it will turn over and run for a second. Car runs. That brake is locking up. You tear that apart. Rear leaf springs are shot. All the rubber, the control arms need to be replaced. I got the front bumper. So the carburetor does have an issue, he was telling me. He's saying right here the accelerator pump is not working right on it. It's like bent or something. I don't know how that's supposed to work, how it's actually supposed to operate, but it's not. It's not operating, so I have to get that fixed. And a slew of other little things here and there, but kind of runs pretty cool. Oh, look, some rust there. Oh well, not a big deal. I might leave the car like this. It's kind of cool. So then about another week goes by, and I finally decide to start looking at the car. I really don't know anything about carburetors. I went ahead and pulled it off and started to take a look at it. Alright, so here's the carburetor pulled. Accelerator pump kind of working. It's moving up and down, but I don't know how much that's supposed to go or how that's supposed to look exactly. So definitely going to pull that. You know, I got goo down here. Who knows what's going on with that. Got to identify what this carb is. Don't even know what it is, what the model number is, or anything. I just know that it is a Holly, and that's about it. So looking at the numbers on it, I deciphered through the magic of the internet that, yes, it's a Holley. And if I can keep all these numbers straight, it's a 570 CFM 4150 style carburetor. So I still don't know too much about it, but now I got a good place to start. So anyways, I figured out the accelerator pump I needed for it, and there was some different sizes, so I just ordered another one and put it back together and put it in the car. Now, the car still didn't start. It tried to. It wanted to run, and sometimes the starter would get stuck, but, that doesn't affect the car actually starting. So on a whim, I actually tested the coil, and the voltage on it was way too low. So I just bypassed the coil directly to the positive on the battery to energize the positive side, and guess what?
Oh yeah, check it out, it's running like a dream. All I had to do was jump the coil because the stupid ignition wire's not working right. Look at that, it's running great. Oh, for a second.
So once again, I obviously don't know too much about carbs, but that will change. So this car basically is a rat nest of wiring. Someone had gone through, and the startup procedure that Randy described to me for this car was you're supposed to turn the ignition switch and pull another toggle switch that was installed under the dash. That's not right. And basically that was a bypass to put full 12 volts to the coil. But that's supposed to be in the starter switch. I checked the starter switch, and the starter switch was fine.
Okay, I also noticed yesterday too that this isn't moving again. It's the stupid accelerator pump. Oh no, there it goes, look, it's actually spraying gas out. Oh, now it's working. Wasn't doing that yesterday. Cool, okay, so that's fixed now too. I actually adjusted this up because I think I was pushing down too hard on it. So let me mess with this wiring and see if I can get it running today.
Wiring, it will all be checked at some point. Everything from the alternator is not wired properly. The ignition switch is not wired properly. I don't think anything is wired properly in this car.
All right, here she is running again. It seems to be a little more stable this time. I put my resistor from my car in it, the ballast resistor. I think that's the problem. Why the whole bypassing electrical problem thing started, because that ballast resistor, the resistance is in it is too high. So now I got spark, and now it's running. And it sounds really good. Wow, about 5 minutes later and she's still running. So I got the idle down. I got the choke disabled right now. I don't understand how it works. I think it's electric. It's hooked to the ignition wire. I don't know. So I got the choke all the way open, and it seems to be idling at a good speed right now. But hell, look at that, the car's running. So, all because of a ballast resistor.
So what happens with this ballast resistor problem has probably been plaguing I don't even know how many previous owners of this vehicle. At least 2 would be my guess. So what I did was took the ballast resistor out of my 57 Chevy, put that in my 56 Chevy, and...
Okay, awesome news. I just started the car with it hooked up properly on the normal ignition circuit with the ignition switch, and it started. So here's the problem. This is the ballast resistor I pulled out. It's almost 6 ohms. And what the shop manual says that it's supposed to be is 1.4 to 165. So that is way, way too high. In fact, the one I have in there is actually still a little higher. It's it's a little over 2. But the voltage is supposed to be between 527 on the coil, and I have over 5 on it, so that's why it's working. So even that one's still a little too high. I don't know if it's because it's wore out and I need to replace it, but I have electronic on my 57, so it's not really even being used. So that fixed the problem. I pulled the part off my 57, now it's fixed, because this is wrong.
This is the ballast resistor that you get when you go into a parts store and ask for a ballast resistor for a 56 Chevy. It is not even close to the right ballast resistor. It's a generic ballast resistor. It will work, but it's not for this vehicle. And the resistance is just way too high on it. So these are things that you're just supposed to know don't work if you try to get them from an auto parts store. Don't be mad at the parts guy. It's not his or her fault. It's just the way it always is. So the things I've noticed, definitely the ballast resistor is never right when you go to the parts store. Also, the temperature sending unit is not correct on a Tri-5. There's only one place in the entire world that sells the correct temperature sending units to be used in a stock gauge of a Tri-5. Don't go to the auto parts store. You will be disappointed. Okay, so I want you to look at this because this will come back to haunt me in part 3 of this diary series for Dirty Gurdy. Notice how dirty the filter is. The filter is very dirty. Very dirty.
Okay. Oh yeah, starts right up and runs. There we go. So the ignition switch is all hooked back up correctly, the stock way that it's supposed to be. Ballast resistor is now hooked up the way it's supposed to be. The alternator is actually working now. And I also installed a wire that goes from the alternator directly to the battery. So in case it overcharges, it won't put too much power through the switch, because the original generator only put out like 30 amps. This puts out 60. So that battery was low, so it was that perfect scenario where the ignition switch was actually getting hot because this was pushing too much current through that switch to charge that dead battery. So that is bypassed now. Now the ignition switch isn't getting warm anymore either. There we go. We are making some good progress.
The alternator is putting out way more current, way more amps than the charging system that originally came with the car was designed to handle. The way the car works is all of the power from the generator or the battery goes through the starter switch. That is not ideal, but it's fine, the way the car was designed with an original generator. The problem I'm having now is my battery is completely dead, and my alternator is putting out twice as many amps as this thing is designed for. It's at least a 60 amp alternator. I don't even know what the amperage is, but it's way more than the car is designed for. Just think of like an extension cord, and you plug in too many lights into your extension cord during Christmas, it's going to catch on fire because it will literally get warm, the plastic will catch on fire, and you have all kinds of problems. So that can happen to a car. So if you ever update your alternator, make sure you are taking in consideration the charging circuit, and it's going to be different for every car. The 57 is completely different than the 56 and the 55 because they did address that problem by 57. But it's not a problem. It's just how the car was designed. How about that? So to fix the problem, I just basically ran a solid 10 gauge wire from the alternator directly to the battery. I won't have any more issues with it overloading the wire.
All right, surgery is done. Got everything all put back together. Got the switch back where it belongs. These gauges are really interesting. This is a mechanical gauge. It's actually connected with a hard wire. And this is actually a real pressure sensor. It's got a real hose going inside to the motor. So these are kind of cool. Have no idea if that fuel gauge is accurate or not. Obviously the temperature gauge isn't hooked up at all. That's why that's hooked up down there. But the headlights work, and everything else seems to work. So I'm going to try to start it next. That doesn't work. The brakes work. I mean, I'm actually tempted to try to drive it. All right, so everything's put back. See if she starts. That's actually the oil light. It's in the wrong socket. Runs. Now, I don't know if that oil light works because it's got that mechanical one down here. But yeah, that's definitely the oil light. I could just unplug it and put it over there is probably what I should do. There you go. She starts and runs. Horn doesn't work. I have no idea how to shift. I think this actually might be the original 3 on the tree converted to a floor shifter, because it's odd. And you know, it had automatic in it originally, but I think someone went to a junkyard, got an original 3 on the tree, put all the original clutch stuff in it, because this down here is all original. I mean, there's a rod that goes through right here, and it's mechanically connecting the clutch, so there's not even a slave cylinder on this at all. But anyways, long story short is, it runs, yay! Oh my gosh, here we go, Dirty Gurdy's moving! That is definitely first gear. Okay. We're moving, man. Let's figure out second. Okay, there we go. There's a loud noise. I don't know what that loud, I don't know. Oh, that is weird. Okay. But look at this, we're driving. Oh yeah. Dirty Gurdy is moving. Speedometer. Of course it's all jacked up. This is second gear. It sounds like it's gonna explode. Oh, okay. It's just loud. I don't know. Woo! Okay, I'm gonna put the phone down so I can bid. You know, someone's definitely been in here and labeled all this stuff with the colors and everything. But it looks like it's still all original in here. Hasn't been hacked into. Now I can finally look down in here and see what's going on with all these wires and stuff. Get a better idea of what is right and what is wrong on this poor old car.
Don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you want to see more.